Question 410. What is meant by fornication?
Fornication, from Greek porneia, originally meant pagan sexual practice. For instance, temple prostitution. Later, the term was applied to all forms of sexual activity outside of marriage. Today, in English, it generally refers to consensual sexual relations between an unmarried man and an unmarried woman. What does it mean to say fornication originally meant pagan sexual practice, for instance, temple prostitution? In many pagan cultures, they had prostitutes in their places of worship because people believed if you committed a sexual act with a temple prostitute, you were doing so with the god you worshipped. Over time, the definition changed to mean when a man and a woman have sex outside of marriage. What's the problem with that if they are both adults and consent to having sex? The problem is fornication is often based on seduction, lies, violence, dependency, and abuse. The Catholic Church wants to protect people from being used or harmed for their bodies, especially children. Remember, love or charity means to will the good of another. Therefore, fornication is a serious offense against charity because it harms the dignity of the person and fails to recognize the meaning of human sexuality. Civil authorities have the duty to protect minors, especially from fornication.
Question 411. Why is prostitution a form of fornication?
In prostitution, love becomes a commodity, and the person is degraded to an object of pleasure. That is why prostitution is a serious offense against human dignity and a serious sin against charity. Often people who enter prostitution, women, men, children, and young people, do so because they are dealing with difficult situations where they are under an enormous amount of stress or are dependent on someone who coerces them to sell their bodies. It is something no one should ever have to go through. Compared to those who profit from prostitution, the human traffickers, pimps, and clients. The latter have the burden of greater guilt in committing such a serious offense against human dignity and a serious sin against charity.
Question 412. Why is the production and consumption of pornography a sin against charity?
Someone who misuses love by detaching human sexuality from the intimacy of a committed, loving relationship between two spouses and turns it into commercial goods sins seriously. Anyone who produces, buys, or consumes pornographic materials violates human dignity and seduces others to sin. Pornography is a degenerate form of prostitution because pornography suggests that people can get love for money. However, Jean-Jacques Rousseau said exactly what the problem is with that idea. Since love cannot be sold, it is invariably killed by money. If you look at the wedding vows for a wedding, they basically say, in a nutshell, that love needs to be given freely, forever, and with openness to new life to one person. Showing love through the act of sex in marriage is an intimate affair that shows respect to both persons. And love ultimately means willing the good of the other person. In pornography, the fact models and actors are paid to have sex with each other automatically shows it is not love, since it is not intimate. And actually is belittling and degrading to each person involved. Producers pay them to behave sexually with each other, and distributors encourage this type of prostitution by sharing it. And building demand for these types of materials. People who watch or look at pornography are indirectly paying producers, distributors, actors, and models to continue. The act of consumption of pornography means they're participating in the prostitution cycle and supporting the dirty billion-dollar business of selling sex. To make matters even more complicated and a serious offense against charity and human dignity, it has been proven that there is a connection between human trafficking and pornography. So, when a person watches pornography, there is no proof the models or actors are performing out of free will or are paid to do so. So oftentimes, by supporting the pornography industry, you're also supporting the human trafficking industry. Again, love is supposed to be given freely, forever, and with an openness to having babies to one person within the context of marriage. Promoting, supporting, or participating in pornography in whatever shape or form is not in line with what love really is, and hence is a serious offense against charity.
Question 413. Why is rape a serious sin?
Someone who rapes another person thoroughly and completely debases that person. He violently breaks into the deepest intimacy of another and wounds the victim at the core of his ability to love. Do you remember we discussed before there are different components of giving yourself in love to another person within marriage. One of the vows for marriage includes saying you give yourself freely without being forced. When a person rapes another person, that's a serious sin because it's literally against what love is supposed to be. The act of sex within marriage is one of the most intimate experiences, and when rape happens, that's an unacceptable violation of that intimacy. The act of sex is forced in that situation. The act of sexual union within marriage needs to always be given freely out of love. Does that mean rape only happens outside of marriage between two adults? No. It can occur within marriage and within any social, hierarchical, professional, or familial relationships where someone else is dependent on someone else. For example, that includes parents with children, or teachers, educators, pastors with others who depend on them. It is despicable every time it occurs, and rape will always be considered evil. It is not a part of God's plan. However, one thing to keep in mind is the person who rapes another person commits the sin, not the victim. Victims of rape often struggle to love another person because that requires being vulnerable and intimate. And that is very difficult to do after experiencing rape. Healing from that kind of wound inflicted by rape is painful and takes a lot of time, but it is possible with help, both from God and from others who love and care about the person who experienced rape. That can include a priest that the person trusts, supportive friends, or even Catholic counseling and EMDR therapy.
Hi, I'm Katie Locus. This is my sign name. I'm from the Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas. Thank you so much for watching our video this week. Hope to see you again next week. Bye!